certain eras in time will turn the most passionate people into the most passionate heroes. This one statement basically tells the story that is Sunken Rock. Sunken Rock was a manga that came out in 2006. This manga leans more to the seinen side of things as it's about gangs, violence, and territory. This may sound like I'm contradicting the quote from earlier, but this is where the main character, Ken, would come into play. Ken Quintano, aka Rock, was a loner, but for the most part was a really outgoing guy at the same time. He would never really complain about how bad his life was. He would just keep moving forward. His brave attitude and perseverance would earn him the name Rock. He disliked gangs, but the reason wouldn't be said until later on in the chapter. While being alone, he got into fights in school until he quickly fell for a girl that gave him a little bit of attention named Yumi. But this little love affair would fall through as she would tell him that she's going to Korea to become a police officer to help others. 2 years would go by and Yumin would keep her word and become a police officer, and while Rock, he basically was doing nothing for those past 2 years, but this would quickly change as he would be approached by my favorite character in this manga, Heart Teisu. Teisu is the brains of the team as he would be the guy that made the big calls and clean up loose ends. His dad was the leader of a very large gang. This would explain why his name would ring bells all through Korea, as there are countless times where people would know of him. Teisu would give a speech about how gangs and nations are the same. He would go on to explain a nation holds an independent territory known as land and citizens. In these territories, they don't let outsiders trespass in, and if necessary, they'll take you out by force. The force they use is the first comparison he made to nations and gangs. Nations will create rules and taxes, and if you don't comply, there'll be problems. He's the sole reason for the crew being trained for almost a year up in the mountains to prepare for the fights to come because of his high rep. Rock and Teisu would fight. Ken would win by no contest, and Ken would be the leader of the Sunken Rock team. So now we have Rock, Teisu, Pickaxe Man, and Martin. They would quickly gain another member by the name of Jang, a super big guy that would also get clapped by Ken and join. When the crew went up into the mountains to train, they would quickly add a girl who was really quick with a blade and had a massive thing for Rock named Kim. With this, the crew would be the full team. When Rock became leader, he wasn't doing a traditional mob role. He would take over territory just to protect people from the cruel street politics of other gangs. His leadership was very natural as everyone in his team would always be behind him no matter the cause. This type of attitude would haunt him and have people also question him. Many people couldn't really wrap their head around that Rock only wanted to save others and nothing more. In their world where gang leaders only want to extort and make money and use people, Rock would be questioned by Ryu, the old man that gave him free food, the monk that trained him, and even Teisu questioned if his intentions were truly pure or not. Sunken Rock can get pretty edgy at times to paint a story just for us to see how serious things can get. It also has a pretty fair amount of fan service, which can get pretty wild, but hey, it's a sign and that's kind of expected. Sunken Rock also does a really good job at showing how the world of the wildlife isn't sunshine and rainbows. Even if you're a good guy, even when you think you're doing what's right, it may affect the same people that you're trying to save. A prime example of this was when Rock would beat down some thugs from another set from attacking Miss Ryu. Miss Ryu wouldn't have been attacked if Rock didn't get involved, so this would cause her to sell Jihan to save herself from being rolled up. She even says word for word, "You can't even take responsibility for trying to act like some hero. You take actions carelessly thinking that you're right." If Rock had walked away, this would have never happened, but also if Rock didn't have walked away, she would have kept getting extorted. See, it's kind of like a lose-lose situation no matter what you do. While Rock was the leader of the #1 rising gang in Korea, he still wanted Yumin, which, like I said earlier, was a cop. He would go on dates with her, and I forgot to mention, Sunken Rock can be very comical at times, so their dates can be mostly funny, but when it gets serious, it can get real serious, as in one of the dates, Yumin will get kidnapped and saved by Rock, and this is where we learn that Yumin is the daughter of the biggest Yakuza gang leader in Japan. She ran away as she didn't want that type of life, so she ended up staying in Korea instead of going along her dad's plan. We also find out that her dad's gang is responsible for Rock's family passing away. So we have Rock, who is a gang leader whose name is quickly catching ears, and Yumin being a police officer out to put gang leaders in jail for their crimes. Rock knows that Yumen's past, but Yumen doesn't really know much about Rock. By this point, this is where the story kind of just takes off, where we're just basically building up to that point. And it builds up pretty good to where the stakes get really high. The artwork in Sunken Rock is amazing. The artwork really makes you feel the intensity in fights. Boichi is really impressed his talent in this. Speaking about fights, the fights are really well drawn and illustrated, as every war they get into is most of the time like a massive brawl. The manga does a really good job on expressing the cause and effects of the things that you do to save people. It's not really just black and white, where if you do something then good things happen, where in Sunken Rock you can do something good, but since you did something good, something bad can also happen. It's pretty realistic when it comes down to things like that. For example, with Miss Ryu, yeah, if Rock had walked away that wouldn't have happened, but he fought up the thugs that came after Miss Ryu and Jihan. But after that, he tried to make her go back to her hometown, but they ended up blackmailing her in that same old town, and she ended up back in the same position she was in to begin with. So it's basically like an everlasting cycle. Overall, Sunken Rock is a really good manga. I really hope you guys check it out. And yeah, I'm basically pretty much done talking about this manga. Really good manga. I really hope you guys give it a read. And yeah, I'll see y'all later.
They're like animals, and I slaughtered them like animals.